Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Superhuman Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Accurso. And like always, I am so excited to be with you guys today. It's a beautiful sunny day out. Now, I don't know if it's like that where you are. I will say we've had a few days of rain here in Florida, so this sun is well-deserved. But I hope wherever you are enjoying the moment that you're in, whether it's sunny or not. But thanks once again for coming on with me, spending time with me. And I get to bring on an amazing superhuman today, and I can't wait to introduce you guys to him. His name is Jonathan Levi, and he is an extremely experienced entrepreneur. He's an angel investor, and he's a life hacker from Silicon Valley. Since 2014, Jonathan's been one of the top performing instructors on Udemy with his course, Become a Super Learner, which is now retired, but he taught over 110,000 students in his program. And he's since snowballed this success into the launch of his rapidly growing information products company, Superhuman Enterprises, which produces such products as the top-rated Becoming Superhuman podcast. I'm a little jealous of that name, I'm not going to lie, but we're going to keep on moving here. The best-selling Become a Super Learner print, digital, and audio books. Most recently, Jonathan is now teaching people to do what he does, and I can't wait for you guys to hear about the systems and strategies that he uses to help himself learn, honestly, 10 times faster than most everyone around him. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Levi, thank you so much, my man, for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. You know, the first time I heard you, I was kind of in shock a little bit because the stuff you were talking about, I was like, why didn't I learn this in graduate school? Like, I mean, what a crazy thing to think that, you know, I could have worked, hard, and at the same time, I could have really monopolized on these skill sets in order to help myself be efficient and retain a lot more than I did. And so I want to start out first, Jonathan, by talking about your journey. I mean, you're now one of the top experts in this field of learning and memory. How did you get here?
Yeah, it's a crazy story, Matt. So I was let's say, problem student. I suffer from, well, I don't suffer from it anymore, but I was pretty early identified as someone who has what I call the entrepreneur's disease. The medical profession calls that ADD. And I couldn't sit still in class and I couldn't learn. And, it was very cute up until I was about 8. It was a lot less cute when I was 13 and 14. So I spent most of my adolescence and my young adulthood just pretty much drugged out and medicated to be able to keep up with other kids in school. And my strategy was just take a bunch of drugs, come home, lock myself in my bedroom and catch up, because I wasn't getting it in school and I wasn't getting it a lot of times from the textbook. And I tried all kinds of different strategies. My parents, in an act of desperation, bought me, the Evelyn Wood speed reading program. But I never really understood just how much you can actually upgrade your memory. And, I always joke with people, you don't start a podcast called Becoming Superhuman because you were super popular and well-liked and loved yourself in high school. So I started very early on having a very deep interest driven, by insecurities about my learning ability, about my success, about my intellect. I had an interest in developing skills and becoming better. That bordered on obsession, I think. It was only after actually college and after even selling my business, I built a business throughout high school and college because I realized that academically I was nothing special. So I might as well figure out some real world skills, and that certainly helped with the self-confidence of discovering my calling as an entrepreneur. I built my first really successful business that crossed $1 million in sales, did so before I was 18. And,
wow.
We were an Inc. 5000 company by the time I was 21, and we sold the business just after my 24th birthday. So a little bit of confidence came there, but here's what happened after we sold that business. I decided I wanted to do bigger things, as entrepreneurs often do. I wanted to do better things, and that at the time I thought meant going back to business school. So, I used this entrepreneurial success and applied to what is considered the best business school in the world that nobody knows about, which is INSEAD in Singapore and France. And I got accepted. And then I had this immediate, moment because they send me 1,200 pages of reading that needs to be done before we start class.
Wow.
And it's all the stuff that I just sucked at in my business and sucked at in school. It's math, it's statistics, it's, accounting and finance. And I'm just like, oh boy. And I got really lucky. I mean, my strategy was going to be the same, right? But the problem was in business school, it's not just about putting your head down and doing the work. You're also there to network, build relationships, do all kinds of, case studies with other students and look for job opportunities. I wanted to go there to meet a co-founder for my next business, find someone else who's a really, really solid business person and start a business together. And so I knew that I was going to need to actually go out at night and meet people. I wasn't going to be able to lock myself in my room. And I got really fortunate. I did a internship at a VC office, and I happened to run into someone whose wife and he had developed a method and had done some pretty extensive training in memory enhancement and speed reading. To make a long story only somewhat long, I managed to convince them to coach me one-on-one, and the method changed my life, definitely empowered me in business school to actually do all the reading and do all the coursework. And despite the fact that I am a poet, not a quant, succeed in business school. And that skill turned a lot of heads. So I decided to do a side project and translate the materials from Hebrew, the language that I studied it in, to English and readapt them for the online format, because I had kind of identified that online courses were going to be a really, really big thing. And the crazy thing about the skill set is you can use it for anything. So I was like, well, how do you build an online course? How do you market an online course? How do you record videos? How do you edit videos? I just kind of, in the course of a month, learned all this stuff. And within a month of launching, we had one of the top courses on Udemy. And, the system works. If you really want to learn something and you apply these techniques that we're teaching every single day, you can really conquer things and you can really shoot ahead in your career or your industry, because everyone else is just bogged down. And all the information that I learned on how to do that and everything that I've learned since, it's all out there. The thing is, most people just can't conquer and get over the hurdle of learning. And so that's what I do in my memory business. I have another side project which teaches cryptocurrency, and in my most recent business, which is teaching 20 years of content marketing in just condensed, because I've realized that I'm in my zone of genius when I am devouring huge sums of information and then chewing it up and spitting it out in a way that's digestible for everyone else to learn it quickly and easily and without frustration.
Wow. It sounds like it's something you enjoy, like just reading and learning. And so how much of your week is structured around learning something through audio or books?
Not enough. I recently joined Genius Network, which is kind of a high-level mastermind. You probably know it. And my biggest takeaway from the last meeting I went to was just CEOs who are too tightly scheduled can't transform, and realizing that I need to not be guilty about taking a full day off a week or even 2 days off a week to learn, because that's my zone of genius is learning. And, so now I take Tuesdays off, and oftentimes I take Sundays off, which is a work day here in Israel. And I take Fridays off as well. And realizing that when I actually do that, say I take the day off to take a friend's course from Genius Network, I come back and I have all these ideas about better things that we can do in our course. Like, hey, how come their downloadable worksheets are like this and ours are like this? Or, when I take a day off to spend on piano or learning Russian or practicing acro yoga, that I come back with strategies for learning that I can teach to my students. So the answer is at least a day a week. Generally, I try to take 2 days a week, not including weekends.
And when you say a day, is it like, are you looking at like 6 hours a day?
I try to do, so you're catching me on a Tuesday. If you remember, we had to specially book this because I try to really have nothing on my calendar on Tuesdays. Yeah. And lately Sundays are writing days, but if I'm not inspired to write, then I have a kind of clause in my, you must write Sundays and Wednesdays, which is if you're not going to write, learn. Yeah. And so if I want to stay home and sit on the couch and read, on Sunday, I read Cameron Herold's book, Vivid Vision. And that was my day. And I give myself the free pass. A lot of this stuff, I have to say, Matt, is just like mindset and dealing with your own guilt. Speaking as an entrepreneur, not a learner, it's like you feel guilty because your employees are working, or because you're not, answering your customers' emails, when in fact you need to reposition your mindset to understand that, and this is something I'm learning and struggling with every single day, but understand that you are not doing justice to your customers or to your employees if you're not setting vision, and you're not, because everyone else is deep in the weeds.
So true.
Weeds.
So true, man. I mean, that one principle changed my whole year last year. I remember Michael Hyatt. I don't know if you know who that is, but he ran a publishing company. Yeah. And he said to me, when someone asks you, do you have free time here or there? He said, if your number one commitment is to yourself. And that just blew me away, because then I started actually taking time out for myself and saying, and not feeling guilty about saying, hey, I have a commitment then. You don't have to, a lot of times we think we have to explain ourselves away, like, well, I have a commitment, but it's a commitment to myself and all these other things. And you can just say, I have a commitment then. And that changed my whole business. It changed my whole attitude on how to address the needs around me. And then also, working on myself, because you're exactly right. If we're falling apart, then how are we going to serve humanity with the amazing gifts and talents and abilities we have?
So I want to add something to that, which
resonate,
is
man. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, and my yearbook quote in high school, to go way back. A lot of talking about high school for one day, but it was Archimedes. Give me but a firm place to stand and a large enough lever, and I'll move the earth. And I used to think that quote was about the lever, right? Get me a college education, get me 5 years of work, like build up my skills, and I will move the earth. And, that's why it was my quote, is I'm getting all this business knowledge and I'm going off to Berkeley. But I've realized over the years exactly what you said. The important part there is he says first, give me but a firm place to stand, meaning it doesn't matter if you have 6 PhDs and 20 years of work experience. If you're not healthy, happy, motivated, and doing the things that you're meant to be doing, with a family that loves and supports you, with habits that love and support you, the lever doesn't mean anything.
Wow. I love that, man. I really, really love that. And I just wrote it down. I'm going to actually use that in my next webinar that I'm going to be teaching some patients on. And all credit to Jonathan Levi. So, by the way, am I saying your last name right? Is it Levi?
Levy, but I'm
Levy. Oh gosh. Okay, man. Okay, Levy. So let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty. So I've heard you mention Memory Palace. Have you met Nelson Dellis?
He's a good friend of mine.
Is he?
Yeah,
okay.
We're working on, well, I won't reveal, but yeah, Nelson and I work together, and he's been on my show a few times, and I love Nelson.
I love that guy. Okay. So I've heard him mention it, and then, him being in these championships, and then I've heard you mention memory palaces before. Is that something that is a pillar in all of the learning memory strategies that you have?
Actually not, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The pillar aspect of it is visual memory, right? Which is a component. You can't do a memory palace without visual memory. So it's creating complex and highly detailed, highly memorable, often, novel, so like violent or sexual or unique or funny images to represent everything that you want to remember, whether that's names, numbers, binary digits. If you're competing, in world memory championships like Nelson, it's visualizing everything and then connecting every memory to pre-existing knowledge to trick your brain into remembering it. That, I would say, is the pillar. And ironically, I tell my students a lot of times, because they hear me talk about how powerful the whole concept of the memory palace is and what you can do with it. Memorizing thousands of kanji characters. We have students who memorize 60 kanji characters a day, and they get all obsessed with it. And then I tell you really got to understand, using the memory palace. For example, you read a book, you want to remember the top 10 points from that book and apply them in your life. Using a memory palace to do that is kind of like showing up with a thermonuclear weapon to a street skirmish. It's overkill. Whereas if you want to, you mentioned doing webinars, doing presentations. If you're going to give an hour-long presentation, you want to remember every single point. And that you want to have people ask questions in the middle. So you don't want to have that situation where you're encouraging people to ask questions, but then when they do, you're like, okay, where the hell was I? I don't want to be using my slides. I want to be engaged with the audience. If you told me I want to remember a 1-hour presentation backwards and forwards so that if I jump forward 2 slides, I know exactly where I was, we can do that. And I can work with you so that it's an hour to memorize an hour presentation word for word if you need to. Most times you don't need to, but I've worked with people memorizing TED Talks, and that's the kind of stuff. Or if you're a chess champion, for example, I coached a chess prodigy, and he came out and told me, he's like, there are these, I don't even know how chess works, but I get into these positions and there are 1,200 different scenarios that could happen if you open the game this way. And at this point, it's not strategy. It's just knowing if I get to this position where he moves his queen to E2 or whatever it is, I just need to know that this isn't even intuition. I need to know that I need to move my rook to this. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. We can build you a memory palace and memorize all 1,200 possible responses or positions. So that's where the memory palace comes into play.
That's crazy. Wow.
Last thing, if you're learning a language, as I'm prone to doing, you want to memorize all the grammatical rules of a very complex language, like Chinese, like Russian, like Arabic, or you want to memorize the top 2,500 to 25,000 words. That's where, you would use a memory palace, because you might be searching around for a specific adjective or adverb. You want to have everything indexed so that you know exactly where all the parts of speech fall.
Hey, superhuman. Thanks for letting me interrupt this amazing show. Did you know that your mattress doubles in weight after 10 years from all the dead skin, dust mites, feces particles, and dust that's accumulated inside of it? Gross, I know, and you're probably eating. I apologize. The fact is, most people have no idea that their mattress is an oversized, fluffy petri dish that can cause all sorts of issues like headaches, achy joints, sinus congestion, decreased libido, and severe low energy. I've been researching the perfect high-performance mattress for over 5 years now, one that I can truly stand behind, and frankly, I haven't been able to find it until now. It's called Samina Sleep Systems. That's SAMINA Sleep Systems. This is hands down the most advanced bedding system on the market. And talk about comfortable. I could lay on just the bare organic mattress and be out in seconds. But don't listen to me. Try it for yourself. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're not sleeping 10 times better in 10 days, call me and I'll give you a special gift just for your efforts. You can go to Samina.com. That's SAMINA.com. It is a German company, so you're going to want to hit that little translate button at the top of your browser, and it will translate it to whatever language you desire. Hey, I really look forward to seeing you next time on the show. Thanks for spending time with us. Taking it down to a very basic level, if somebody were today to say, okay, I'm going to start getting better at memorizing things, learning things. And let's just give it context. We'll say, a person who is doing presentations, what's a really good starting point, a basis starting point for that person to begin memorizing and learning and retaining?
Right. I can give people the 2 major tips, and we teach this on our webinar as well. The place to start is to train your visual memory and start learning how to use your visual memory and adapt it. So a really easy, great place to start is you meet someone named Michael, visualize them holding hands with someone else named Michael. It sounds like such a stupid thing, but by doing that, you're doing 2 things. One, you're dual encoding. So in addition to creating a visual and an auditory link, you're also linking it to a piece of information that is stored in your brain that is relevant. Our brains work so much like Google's PageRank algorithm that it's scary. They determine who is this piece of information connected to and how important are they. Exact same way that Google says who links to your page and how big is their website. So that's one. And the second is obviously we have something called the picture superiority effect. When you hear about people talk about an eidetic or photographic memory, nobody actually has that in the sense that we all have that. We all have this visual memory, except for a very small percent of people who have kind of a form of learning disability where they cannot visualize anything. Yeah. So a good test is if I tell you pink elephant, don't think about pink elephants, and in your head, roughly an outline of a pink elephant comes in, you have a visual memory, as does everyone else. And training that and learning to convert anything, whether it's names, numbers, whatever, that's the starting point. I mean, that's from 2,500 years ago. This is the origin of improving memory, and it's still the techniques that we use today. A really interesting fact is this is stuff that was used for thousands of years of humanity. This is how they committed the Odyssey to memory. It's how a lot of the Old Testament was committed to memory. And then essentially, I believe it was the Protestant faith realized that people were committing things to memory doing this. And a lot of the way that you do it is violent or sexual imagery. And imagery as a whole is kind of looked down by the Abrahamic religions. You shouldn't be picturing God. You should just be, and so they took it out of the curriculum. But this is stuff that the Greeks were using and teaching and using to remember, which is
interesting.
Pretty cool, huh?
Is that why you're based in Israel? Like, it was one of the reasons? Because you wanted to be kind of in that central hub of like...
No, I'm based in Israel because I like the 25-degree weather in the middle.
You're like, okay. Short and sweet. I like it. That's awesome, man. So when it comes to developing, these intricate details of memorization, I want to know from you specifically, like, there was a point where you were told you have ADHD, medication is going to help you. You took the medication, it got you through a season of your life. And this is rampant nowadays. As you know, Jonathan, it's like every 1 in 4 patients that would come into my clinic in Nashville would be on some type of medication for focus and to to help them not be distracted. When you get a person that's on, or better yet, asking you, are these techniques and protocols the way that you got off the medication? And have you been back on that medication since?
I have gone on and off the medication. Generally, I went off it before business school, and then I sat in a classroom for 8 hours a day and realized, I think I made it like 3 days in. I was like, I'm going to die if I'm forced to sit still without medication. And then I went off of it again, after business school. The problem is this stuff is so damn addictive that even if you don't need it, man. Like, I realized that I don't need it to run my company. I'm passionate about what I do. Of course, it's easier. I mean, we all know, and there's a great documentary called Take Your Pills. Like, this stuff works for everybody, and it's incredibly powerful, and there aren't a lot of side effects. So it's pretty easy to get into a position where you're physically addictive and you're taking it just to, the way that a lot of people are with coffee, right? How many people do you know in your immediate social circle who, if they don't have a cup of coffee within an hour of waking up, they have a pretty massive headache? And so I found myself in that position. I didn't want to be in that position, so I kind of titrated and weaned myself off the medication. I think these things are the answer and solution for cutting down a lot of the information overload. I do believe that our school system more resembles a factory line than it resembles the way that we actually learn, because we're tactile, kinesthetic, visual learners. If you were going to learn how to make an arrowhead from your Paleolithic ancestor 100,000 years ago, you were going to be out there chipping the rocks with your hands, not reading a book about it. And so, I think the solution really is our school systems need to look more like Montessori schools and more like schools where children learn by doing and are passionate about what they're learning. And there are so many subjects that don't make sense, for children, for your average child to learn. And you can say what you want about being a well-rounded human being, but trigonometry is not going to make sense for the majority of people who want to go into the service profession, right? And so I think that's the solution. And unless and until our school systems are adapted for the way that children learn, we have to drug kids just to keep them sitting still. And I think that's a tragedy.
It is. It really is. I found, it was interesting because I would have kids come into my clinic and, mom would be distraught. Mom and dad would be distraught. And they would say, we don't know how to get little Jimmy to learn. And so it was interesting though, because there was always, probably 99.9% of the time, the child could sit in front of a video game for 6 hours and not move a muscle and literally look right at the video game. So my whole thing was, okay, well, so if that's happening, then their brain is capable. They're not broken, and a lot of times and I even thought of myself like that, because I went through a similar challenge as you when I was in school. Is I was diagnosed with all these ADHD diagnoses. And the fact is I just wasn't learning the way that I needed to learn. So I think what you're saying is so huge. I want to know, have you had any exposure to nootropics or nootropic stacks in your journey? Yeah. Do you respond to those, or is it just kind of like not something that you don't really like?
I respond very well. I mean, like I said, I spent the better part of 15 years using legal meth, right? And that's how I got through high school, college, and grad school. And so there's that. And so a lot of things like a paracetam don't even move the needle for me that much. But I will say I have shifted more towards less engineered, I guess I would say less lab made stuff. Not because there's anything wrong with it, but because I find that it's more in line with the person that I'm becoming in my maturity. I used to have this policy of like, drugs are there to serve me, and everyone has their, their vice. And if I were a diabetic, I would not restrict myself from taking insulin. I have ADD. I've kind of changed my opinion on that, as you can tell. But I do think that the desire to alter our state of consciousness is one of the oldest and most universal drives in the human spirit, right? Alcohol in pretty much every society that we see, tobacco in every other society, and a lot of them, our ancestors discovered marijuana and discovered mushrooms and all. I think it's a very important part of human nature to want to see the world through different eyes. Yeah. And a big part of that in modern society, where we're so intellectually driven and so spiritually bankrupt, is that we want to go up, up, up. And so I think there are a handful of tools that are phenomenal and are at your disposal that don't come out of a lab. A great one that I always tell people as a starter is change out your morning cup of coffee for yerba mate, which in addition to caffeine also has the other two xanthine class chemicals, which is theobromine, which is I believe theobromine is the one that vasodilates, so reduces blood pressure, and theophylline, which will slow your heart rate, to counterbalance the caffeine. Yeah. And people see amazing effects from that. I call it nature's Ritalin, and it grows in a tree and they shred it and you put it in a cup and it's great. Another one that I really love, I got to give a plug for my buddies at Four Sigmatic, because they make a mushroom coffee, which includes ground up lion's mane and chaga mushroom, which, let's put it this way. If yerba mate is the Ritalin from the plant kingdom, then we have a whole other kingdom of chemicals, the fungi kingdom, that we barely eat from, if you really think about how many plants we eat. And
so true.
Right. And lion's mane is the natural alternative to Ritalin from the fungi kingdom. And it works. I mean, I drink it most mornings now. And in the words of Tim Ferriss, it will light you up like a Christmas tree.
It's so true. And it is so true that when you consume foods like that, there's so many different benefits. Lion's mane is amazing for liver detox, right. It's excellent for adrenal burnout. So I love that we're talking about this because, we're talking about specifically the brain, but there's so many benefits that come from eating diverse herbs, mushrooms, cordyceps, things like that. That's awesome.
100%.
Would you say that, that's in your daily regimen? Like, are you doing those things every day?
Most days, yeah. I switch it up based on kind of my moods, and I try not to drink too much coffee because of the teeth staining and the stomach acidity. Although I find that the Four Sigmatic stuff it's light on the coffee and heavy on the mushrooms, which I like. Yeah. I really try to take my fish oil every single day. I got to admit that it doesn't happen every single day. I try to. It doesn't happen every day. One of the things that I've learned in my older age is progress, not perfection. So not beating myself up when, I don't make it up for my 6:30 a.m. meditation, and maybe I don't have the strongest workout. I love that mantra of progress, not perfection.
Love it, man. Yeah, me too. Keeps things simple. So I want to know, what do you think about, it doesn't have to be daily, but just something that you come back to that helps you maintain your high level of performance, Jonathan? Because you're involved in so many things. You're starting businesses, you're delving into different programs, you're helping hundreds of thousands of people with what you're creating. What's that thing in your head that comes off every once in a while?
Well, the thing that I come back to again and again and again. I guess I should say it's things, right? Because if I've learned anything interviewing 170 plus of the world's top superhumans, it's you hear the same things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Sleep, proper nutrition, exercise, and the one that I would add on top of that, we don't cover it a lot in our show, but it comes up, is social bonds, having a strong social network. So I come back to that again and again and again, and I'm playing, the balancing the plates on the poles like anyone else, and juggling all this stuff to where, am I investing in the social bond by staying out past midnight with a friend, or am I going to sleep and maintaining the rest? But I think you can choose. They say when you go into business school, sleep, sex, school, or social, choose two, any two. And so it is that balance. And I decided early on, in my MBA, that I was going to choose sleep. I find that is the base of the pyramid. Yeah. Everything else crumbles if that goes away. And in the sense that you're right, if you eat really crappy, it might affect your sleep a little bit. But on the converse, if you're not sleeping enough, you're going to crave sugary, crappy food. And then when you crave sugary, crappy food, then your cognition's going to go down. When your cognition goes down, your work output's going to go down. When your work output goes down, your social life's going to go down, because you're going to start trying to shift energy away from it. So I find that sleep is the biggest one. And we've done a couple, I think, really phenomenal episodes on sleep on the podcast with some of the world's top experts, that it changed my life. I ripped out my entire bedroom set, changed my entire bedroom, spent thousands of dollars on blinds, acoustic windows, all kinds of treatments, memory foam mattresses. It was game changing. And then I changed my entire life routine. So all my screens are yellow. All the lights in my house dim at night and dim bright in the morning. I have a telephone curfew, and on and on and on and on. I designed so much of my day around how well I'm going to sleep.
I love that, man. I love that. And you're exactly right. I mean, and especially now that we have more and more things coming out on epigenetics and how that plays a part in our daily lifestyle, recovery. There's so many genes that respond to recovery. And then it's just a cascade effect off of the recovery aspect of things. So I really resonate with that. I always love to talk about books. Any books that you're reading right now or have read that you feel would resonate with the audience?
Yeah, I think a really, really important one. I asked you before the episode, who is listening to this show? For entrepreneurs, one of the most important books I've ever read is one that I didn't discover until about 2 years ago. And like I said, I've been an entrepreneur. I started my first quote unquote business when I was 4, my first successful one when I was 16. It took me this long to figure out this book, and it changed everything for me. It's called The E-Myth Revisited by
I love that book. Yes.
Phenomenal book. And then I would just say, my most important book of all time, because it was the book that helped me understand that reading something, this is what I'm all about, right? I teach people how to learn faster because I believe that learning is the only skill that matters. Because if you can learn effectively and implement what you learn, you can become anyone, do anything you want, right? I was a depressed kid who was afraid of crowds of more than 2 people, and now I lecture 100,000 people, on my podcast. And that book was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love that book. It's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So kind of getting to our close here, is there anything that you're passionate about as an entrepreneur that our heroes out there could benefit from?
Yeah, this is in line with the Michael Gerber E-Myth Revisited. I'm really passionate about systems. And I had huge realizations in my business that systems include, your email automation software and your Zapier that connects everything and all that. But humans fit into systems, and you need to design systems to cater to the way that humans work, and you need to train humans to cater to the way that systems work, and having this seamless handoff between the systems and processes that you design deliberately in your business and the people that are running and operating your business. The difference between the corner mom and pop burger shop and McDonald's is one has processes to scale and open up a new branch every single day with quality control. And one is, just flying by the seat of their pants with no kind of vision and systems.
Yep. I love it. Jonathan, where can our listeners go to learn more about you and your amazing mission that you're up to?
Yeah, I've got like a million different websites. So probably the fastest way for people to see all the different projects I'm working on is jle.vi.
Okay.
Website has everything I'm doing. If you guys want to check out the Branding You course, which is the latest venture, training people how to build 7-figure media businesses, it's there. The super learning stuff is there. We have a lot of stuff on productivity and automation. So
cool.
It's all there.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us today and just giving us some golden nuggets. Yeah, this is stuff that, that I'm going to be implementing. And for everybody out there, continue to learn, be a habitual learner, and continue to put yourself out there, be bold. And don't ever forget that you have everything it takes inside of you. You are a superhuman already. And I hope that this information today helps your life to blast off into the next amazing season that you're getting ready for. Remember, guys like Jonathan Levi are doing amazing things, but before he was doing amazing things, he was around amazing learning and doing what you're doing. So keep rocking it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Hey, World Changer. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Do you desire to gain an unfair competitive advantage in life? Do you want more energy, focus, and clarity to add more life to your years and years to your life? I can almost hear your answer coming through my headphones. A resounding yes. If that's the case, you can go to superhumanentrepreneur.com/hack in order to get your free high performance hack guide. That's www.superhumanentrepreneur.com/hack. My mission is to help activate high performance among 10 million entrepreneurs and their families within the next 10 years. If you're loving the content you're hearing, you can partner with me on this mission by simply leaving a review on iTunes. If you do this now, I'd very much appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to giving you even more high performance value next time.